This meeting is being recorded and it is 7:01, so I'm going to share the agenda and start our meeting. So welcome everyone to the Town of Wakefield Planning Board meeting for March 9th, 2021. So if you could mute when you come in, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, Bill, we're still missing one member. I don't know if we want to wait before opening the meeting.
Well, I'm going to go through and read this part here, and then if, let's see, we're missing Megan. Bill is not joining us tonight.
Megan is here.
Okay,
I'm here.
that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Bill is not joining us this evening. He let me know via email. Obviously, this meeting is in Zoom and consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, which I think might be 25 now. I'm not sure, but we should check on that. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following link. That's this. So we also, it's being recorded. You could go to the recording, which is on our website. If you have any questions about that, please click on Planning Board Chair, send a message and I can help you with it. So meeting was called to order and we do have 4 members here this evening. Item number 2, approval of meeting minutes, February 9th, 2021. Did everyone get a chance to review? And if so, are there any questions, comments? No?
Reviewed and no questions.
All right, thank you. Motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 9th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept the February 9th, 2020 minutes as presented.
I will second that.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Matt. Item number 3. Public hearing, articles proposed to amend zoning bylaws. Is Bill Conley here?
Yes, Bill.
All right, I'll stop my share. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board and guests. Speaking on behalf of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, and on behalf of all parties, we withdraw our articles and ask to terminate the public hearing. Beyond that, I want to say thank you for your due consideration over the past months and many meetings and even extra meetings and hard work. It was appreciated, and the board was doing their job with diligence and with ability. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Bill. Thanks for everything you're doing for the lake and the committee and all too. This will not require a vote from our board and there'll be no other comments. The public hearing is terminated. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bill.
Item, let me go back to the share.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask Bill Conley if he just wants to elaborate on why he's withdrawing this, just in case people have any questions on the reasoning. Sure.
Bill, if you'd like to respond to Mr. Lowry's question.
Hi, Matt. Yeah, it's no secret. Most recently, among other media, we've had information out there of our position that recently appeared in the Daily Item. And the reason we are withdrawing the articles is that we are negotiating with Cabot and Forbes. We're not finished. We're very, very hopeful we will come up with an agreement that could carry through to the Zoning Board of Appeals process and into a special permit. And the negotiation with Cabot and Forbes are on very specific lake issues. We feel that's our charter and our reason to be talking with them. We expect that there will be, quite a bit of public input to their permitting process. There's plenty of room left for other negotiations, but we feel fairly comfortable at this point that we will reach an agreement that will carry over into the special permitting, and we're quite pleased about that. Because of that, we see no need for these articles to be continued in this hearing.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I think I've covered quite a bit there, so thank you.
Great explanation. Thank you. And our next item on tonight's agenda is an A&R plan for 120 Chestnut.
Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you like me to share, or do you want to share? How do you want to do that?
You can, if you have the plan, you can, that'd be great.
Actually do.
Okay, great, thank you. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, representing Temple Emmanuel of Wakefield. With me tonight is John Ogre from Hayes Engineering and Ben Weiner from Temple Emmanuel. This plan probably looks familiar to the planning board because it was presented to you a while ago, and is pretty much the same plan. You endorsed this plan before. You may recall that this plan involves registered land in the town of Wakefield. So the after your endorsement or approval, it has to go to the land court in Boston to be approved. There's an extensive filing that I have to put together to go before the land court. And then once it's there, the engineering division of the land court, in conjunction with the judges, reviews the plan. And quite often the survey department in Boston at the land court will come back with some changes or modifications. Sometimes they're de minimis. They don't have to come back before the board. In this case, we thought they were de minimis, but being conservative, we wanted to bring it back to the board. John can explain maybe what transpired as far as what we think are minor changes. But in any event, the plan still qualifies for an approval not required endorsement, and we're requesting that tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
With that said, John, do you mind kind of elaborating a little bit on where the modifications through our land court process have brought us?
No, not at all. John Over in Hayes Engineering. Essentially going to the land court in terms of holding the perimeter, determining what the perimeter, the boundary lines are. The land court came up with a slightly different determination than we did. Essentially what we're talking about is an area along the sideline of Park Ave on what's on this plan, lots 7 and 8, adjusting it less than an inch. So lot 6 on this plan is the same. I think before we had the lots were labeled A, B, and C. These lot numbers came from the land court, so they reflect what the land court will, the lot numbers that they will assign to it. So we had to make the adjustments to those lots based on the land court determined perimeter, and this plan reflects that. It's essentially the same plan. Like I said, pretty much less than an inch along the sideline of Park Ave was adjusted.
Was there a reason that they moved it an inch? Was there any, like, what would cause it to be moved an inch? Just curious.
It's when there's registered land involved, I deal with this all the time. It's a very thorough process that their engineering department goes through when they review everything. Sometimes they want bounds reset. Sometimes we have to go before the judge and argue it. But in any event, there was no need to argue this because it was an inch. So it was just simple for us to give them the inch and adjust the plan and bring it back to you.
Right, thank you. I could see where there's like a radius and this just almost spline, that I wonder if that was a factor where it was just more difficult to survey.
Yeah, it's not necessarily difficult. I mean, it's pretty involved, and I don't know that we need to get into the back and forth between us and the court. But essentially, you know, we go out there and recover the record monuments, put those on the plan, and we plot up the relationship to the what we find in the field to what's shown on the land court plans. And we held the perimeter based on what we felt that the court was going to determine. But essentially, we're just land surveyors for the court. So we go out and gather the information for them and then present it to them, and they make the final determination.
Excellent, thanks. Any board members have any questions or comments?
I do, Bill. Was there any discussion in the previous assessment of the A&R plan? I wasn't a board member at the time, so just was there any discussion or questions that were discussed the last time when this was presented before the board?
I did look back in my notes and there were a few questions about the land and how it's splitting. There were some questions about the slope of the land and the wall in the back, and the amount of access along Park Ave to make sure it was enough. But I didn't find anything else in the notes. I don't know, Matt, if you recall, or Brian.
No, I mean, the plan, the temple's staying. So, you know, people
Yep.
see this plan, the temple's not going anywhere. It's really just creating another lot.
There's a lot going on the plan, so that is why I ask.
There is. So let me, if you're not familiar with this, I remember joking during it because my kids coming back from Walton would cut down through here. That's the shortcut instead of doing Chestnut to Park. So this is the temple outline. So Chestnut where it slopes down, and the
Mhm.
pillars are here, the stone pillars. And this is the space in between, and you can see the wall and the different land. And it's pretty flat in this area here. But that's this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but this is the lot right here that's being created. 7.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Is there going to be a new building going up there?
Well, eventually, I think you'll see a single family home that will be built on lot 7.
Okay. What about lot 8?
There's already a house there.
Okay.
So I mean, John, maybe you can tell, you know, where the land, a lot of this land was part of lot 8, right, John?
No, a portion of it.
Portion of it.
It's kind of faint on this, but you can see the previous lot lines. They
Is
kind
it
of
right here.
Yeah, yep, exactly. That was basically the existing lot lines between that single family home and then the temple.
Right there.
So there was basically 2 lots there before, now there's 3.
Any other question from the board? Any board members? Thank you. Attorney McGreal, what's our next step as a board with this? Do we need to, I know Mr. Mayo needs to sign, is this correct? What's the process with this?
Well, I mean, it's an A&R plan, so what we're requesting is that you would vote to endorse the plan. It doesn't need approval because it's approval not required.
Right.
It's, you know, with all due respect, I think you know that the applicant's entitled to the endorsement. So you're just
Right.
confirming that you would endorse it. Then I would get the application to you with the check, as we've done in the past with COVID. I can get that to Erin, and then the board could authorize you to sign the application, Mr. Chair, because we have to clock that in at the town clerk. And then we could arrange through Erin and you to get board member signatures on the MyLot.
Okay, so the forms have to be redone, the signatures have to be redone. So this is my first time actually
Yeah,
through an A&R for the second time with the same one in this way, so.
yeah, good point. I mean,
Okay.
it's another A&R plan. The filing fee has to be paid. You know,
Okay.
it's a new plan.
Okay,
So I think, you know, we would just treat it. The other one just won't get recorded. We'll shred it.
okay, so I think,
So
Go ahead.
I have I don't know if I should be bringing this up, do we need to pay another filing fee? I mean, this is part of the process with land court is sometimes you have to revise the plan. It's basically the same plan. To me, I don't think you should need to pay another filing fee, but that would be my opinion.
Well, we'd appreciate that consideration. There's no publication fee here. There's no notice, no mailing. I mean, there's no notice required
Right.
on approval not required plan. So there's no expenses incurred by the town except for being here tonight, your signatures. So we appreciate that. I'm sure Ben would appreciate that.
Yeah, I would request that we waive the filing fee on this second plan because it's basically a resubmittal with clarifications from the court, which is out of the, out of control of anyone here. So.
I agree, Matt. Do we need to make a motion to waive the fee, or is it just something we could just say we're waiving the fee?
I'll make a motion if you want. So.
Yeah, let's make a motion just so it's in the notes and it's captured that way.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to endorse the subdivision plan of land on Chestnut Street and Park Ave in Wakefield, Mass. Being a subdivision of lots 3 and 5 on land court plan number 4074D, prepared by Hayes Engineering, last revised January 18th, 2021. And I also propose to waive the filing fee on this submittal.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Megan. All in favor of endorsing the subdivision plan per Mr. Lowry's motion?
Aye.
Aye. Joanne, Matt. Okay, so it's 4. And we have 4 members tonight, so that's all 4. All right, thank you. So consider the plan endorsed and the fee waived. Mr. Attorney McGrail, what would you, let me stop the share.
Yep.
How would you like to go about the signatures, or?
I'll coordinate it with Erin and you, if that's okay.
That's
that
perfect.
We'll
And,
connect tomorrow, Brian.
That's fine. Erin.
Okay.
Thank you.
perfect.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
excellent, thanks. All right. Just looking at our business this evening, just closing a couple things I don't need open anymore.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
next item-
Mr. Lieber has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. He does. Thank you. I have more people with videos.
So,
You leave it?
thank you. I appreciate that. I'll try to keep it quick, just as a issue of formalities.
I'm sorry, Dan, can you state your address?
Sure. Address 1 Elm Street
Right.
in Wakefield. Just for formalities, I'm noticing a couple of things. Just so this will be in the interest of both the temple, Mr. McGrail, and the others related to today's topics. They're really, all votes must be by, according to the governor's orders, must be by roll call. And even for the public hearing, it still has to be opened and closed with a roll call vote. And you have to allow for members. I'm not sure that anyone actually wants to talk on it.
Right.
But just because even if the full intent, and I'm not disputing the intent to withdraw the articles or request, make the motion for indefinite postponement. But when it comes up because they were submitted for town meeting, they'll be on the warrant, just so that the planning board, the planning board itself won't be in a place where it did not take up the public hearing. That would make the planning board not look good, because it actually proposed it, never opened it and closed it. So all you have to do is have that within, it was called for 7 o'clock. It's still within a reasonable time, realistically. So that's where I'm just
Sorry, Mr. Lieber, if I can interrupt, that's, we will not be closing the public hearing by vote. The article is withdrawn and the public hearing is terminated. If as a board, we close it and after 21 days, and I'm sure you're aware of this, this can be brought up at town meeting by any person. So we are terminating the article is being withdrawn and terminated by the sponsors. So there is no vote by the planning board for this. And this was reviewed and with town council to make sure we got it correct.
And to further clarify, it's not on town warrant. It was proposed for the last town meeting,
Right.
which it didn't fulfill the public hearing requirement, so it didn't make that one. And it's not on the next one, so.
Okay, so you're not going to hold the public hearing, you're terminating it itself, which again, I don't have a problem with it, but any votes and so forth must be by full roll call and recorded as such. So that, which would include the waiver of the fee and so forth.
Okay.
For
Yeah,
Mr. McGrail.
Thank you for
Mr.
pointing that
McGrail's recommendation. Yeah, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm
Nope,
just
that's okay.
looking at it.
Thank you, Dan. So let's just quickly, Brown, and I see your hand up, but let's do on Matt Lowry's endorsement, the motion on the floor. If we could do a roll call, I'll just go down the list. If you vote in favor or not vote in favor, Matt Lowry.
Yes, in
Thank
favor.
you. Joanne Schooler.
Can you read the motion again?
Sure. Susan, is that something you could read?
No, my
Thank you.
motion was to endorse the subdivision plan of land on Chestnut Street in Park Ave in Wakefield, Massachusetts, being a subdivision of lots 3 and 5 on land court plan number 4074D, prepared by Hayes Engineering, last revised January 18th, 2021, and to waive the application fee for this plan.
Thank you.
Second by Megan Menasali.
Yes.
Joanne, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Megan Menasali.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. And I'm also in favor. Thank you. Also let the record show, Susan, there's a roll call vote on that, and we'll continue with that. Thank you, Dan. Brownon, you have your hand up. If you'd like to speak, state your address, name and address.
Yes, hi. Bronwyn Delavolpe, 8 Cyrus Street. Yes, just out of curiosity, can you please explain why the fee is waived?
As Matt Lowry mentioned, the fee was originally paid for, and that includes all the town paperwork and everything going on. And now that the land court is asking for revisions to the plan, not our planning board, not our town, this is something we do every once in a while when we feel like it's not appropriate to charge town of Wakefield residents an extra complete fee to file it again. It's already been through the filing and everything. So Matt, if you want to, I kind of butchered that a little bit. If you want to clarify or simplify.
This A&R was before us previously. And at that time, we reviewed it. We determined that it complied to our standards for A&R plans, and we endorsed it at the time. And at that time, the fee was paid for that filing. So because
How much is the fee?
Attorney McGrail, if you could respond to Brownon's question about the fee for filing.
So the fee for an A&R plan is $250 plus $100, $350, I believe.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question. It's always good. I always learn something when the questions are asked, that's for sure. Thanks. Any other questions regarding this matter? Thank you. Next item on tonight's agenda, item number 5, is a board discussion. And this is it's a topic that is relevant to what's going on now. So I'm excited to hear, this is going to be a board discussion tonight. We're not going to have public input at this time because it's just our first time talking about it. It was brought up by one of our board members. And Joanne, if you'd like to give it a little bit of background on why you think our board should discuss this and what your ideas are. And then as a board, we can open the discussion.
Yeah. I thought as the planning board, since we are the planning board, we should have some brainstorming around proactive planning to protect the lake. So I thought as a planning board, we might want to develop a zoning bylaw to protect the lake that might include things like restricting the height of buildings that are around the lake and the density around the lake, since this is our town gem. And I think we need to be proactive about it. So I wanted to see what other members, how the other members of the board felt about that, what their ideas are, and start with that.
Thanks, Joanne. I'm really glad you brought this up. I know we're going to have it on our meeting agenda at the end of February, and I'm glad we still have it this evening. Just to make a point too, we had our Vision 2030 Vision 2030 first public forum last Thursday evening, and it was well attended, and I was lucky enough to facilitate one of the rooms, volunteered to, and it went really well. And I have to say, most of the comments when the questions came down were like, the lake, what's most important? The lake. What's the thing in the town that you love? The lake. Why did you move here? The lake. Everything was about the lake. So it is that important. It did come up over and over again. So I love this topic, and I feel the same way, that being proactive as a planning board, and I know Aaron and I have had this conversation, and with a couple of other board members we have in the past, it would be great to figure out some type of zoning bylaw that we could propose that would protect the lake. And thinking of the points, just to reiterate, the height and the density become the first two things. And then we have to maybe think about how far, what's the extent around the lake? What type of zoning districts are in that area that we want to protect more than others? What's the priorities? And then when we get into it, we can discuss. So I'm interested to hear, Matt and Megan, if you have any comments about this.
Well, it seems like the only parcels that we would be targeting are the ones that were included in this last zoning article. Because the only other abutters to the lake are, for the most part, some residential, municipal, and a cemetery. So I think any zoning change we do, we know exactly which parcels are going to affect. And it's probably going to look a lot like the article that was just before us.
It's true. And we could probably think as well, what if Spalding Ave, for example, a few of those residents got together and sold their homes to do something else in that area. I know it's restricted by zoning, but we don't have anything written controlling if it's in that area by the lake. So there could be some other areas, lot size, that just border the lake or just back a little bit from the lake that could also be considered.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Bill. That we shouldn't assume something couldn't happen to even those residential areas.
It could mean just looking at our zoning bylaws too, to make sure the zoning bylaws that are already in place don't contradict each other or leave an opening for something to happen that we're just not aware of yet. No, Megan, do you have any thoughts or?
Yeah, I'd just be curious to, like, I don't know if the best course of action is to like look at the zoning map and, you know, determine the different areas that would potentially be affected, and you know, how it would, you know, how that would work, right? Would it be like an overlay versus you know, changing like the different areas? And I guess my questions are more on the process. I think it's a great idea, and I'm certainly gung-ho to put something together. I just would want to know about the specifics and the process of how it would work across the different zoning areas.
It would be good to think too, it's like light pollution. There was an excellent lecture learning session back, man, it's hard to remember. Was that in November or October? Through the Conservation Committee, they had an expert come in and talk about light and light pollution. And that was wonderful. And maybe that's another consideration. And I know, Matt, one of your pet peeves is the lighting of buildings on the outside and how ridiculous that is. And I have to agree with that. This light on the buildings, just lighting up the facade for what reason, is something that is a pet peeve of mine when I walk by.
Yeah, I think in terms of the process that the planning board can draft this and get input from town council or the Conservation Commission.
Well, that brings up a really good point too. And I remember sitting down with Erin, like her first couple of weeks on the job, and it was like, how do we get our boards to work together better? How do we get communication through the boards? I mean, maybe this is a great opportunity to build a small little subcommittee of Joanne, maybe another person on our board, and somebody from the Conservation Commission, somebody from the ZBA, bringing our boards together to really communicate and then report back to really figure out, as a town of Wakefield, how do we feel about the lake and what can we do to proactively protect it? But you know, the protection side is the big word. What does that even mean? It's like, how do we proactively do what in the best interest of who? So that's the part that I think if we were able to cross a few boards, and this is what I really wanted to talk about tonight with this item, is how do we bring in somebody from the conservation, 2 people from the Conservation Commission and other boards and other committees? How do you all feel about that?
Well, for me, I guess the ultimate question here is what are we trying to achieve?
Mhm.
If it's just height and density, I'm looking at the zoning map right now. Again, the only thing that's really going to affect that is the limited business district at the head of the lake. Everything else is either general residents or regular residents. So if the ultimate goal is to control height and density, we know which parcels are going to be affected right now. If it's going to be pollution to the lake or light pollution, then that brings in a bigger, broader area. So I guess we need to figure out on what the end purpose of this is. You know, what are we trying to achieve here ultimately?
Ultimately, I want my kids and my grandkids to enjoy the lake
Yeah.
even better than what it is now.
Yeah.
Be able to walk around it safely. And I know I'm part of the Safe Streets Committee, and we're talking about bike lanes and different things and protected bike lanes and walking paths around the lake. But the cemeteries, I honestly don't know what would happen if the cemeteries went up for sale. I don't even want to think about that. But this whole area along here, I love how beautiful, you know, Vets Field and this whole area is wide open. And that's where we watch the fireworks from. Like, how does the top of the lake resemble the bottom of the lake? It really doesn't. This
Right.
whole area up here, I know there's a business area that bleeds towards the shore of the lake.
Yeah, I think we're trying to protect the views as well as the whole environmental sustainability of the lake, because it's already losing water. So the environmental impact is one consideration, but it's, like you say, just the whole livability around there and the views.
It's true, and the views and the aesthetic side of that. And I know I wasn't here when Jordan's furniture went in and all that, but maybe working with Dennis, DPW and Dennis Fazio on trees and correct planting of trees that could help block some of what's there, or in some ways replant. I know that's going on a lot in town too. It actually looks really good, the replanting of a lot of trees. There was something else too.
Yeah.
I actually left my notes at work on this today, but most of what I've talked about already were the committees getting together with town committees to help figure this out.
I think that's a good idea, but I also think we as a board sort of need to take the initiative to start with a straw man. You know, even if it's a simple straw man that specifies what we think an acceptable height would be for buildings around the lake, because otherwise, I mean, I think we're gonna see more of the whole Jordan's furniture approach, which you know, I think a lot of people in Wakefield aren't too happy about all the bright lights from Jordan's and the walkability. When you look at how many people are walking around the lake every day.
Right. Well, this is it's the beginning of the discussion, and to Matt's point, what is our goal? Is our goal as a board to rewrite or write zoning bylaws, revise or write new zoning bylaws to create an overlay district that will take into consideration height and density beyond what the current bylaws uphold? So, I mean, that would be it too. I guess the first step would be is to a little chart showing what's happening around the lake, and maybe it's more just going around and on this map quickly identifying height and density for the different districts, zoning districts.
So if we were to create, if it is a new overlay district, a lake overlay district.
Possibly, yep, that could be one of the solutions.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would take into consideration what the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt ran into with this and the wording, and thinking of if it's a limited business that also could affect other properties, as we discussed in the public hearing. If it's just a certain distance from the lake or around the lake.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a certain distance, like a circle around the lake, right?
Right, because this is all municipal, but I'm just seeing if there's any other pieces here. No, it's still. There could be even parts of this that, and last night in the town council meeting, the company that runs the boat rentals here in the dock, that came up as one of the items last night. I stayed through the town council meeting because of the Butler Ave stuff at the end, but got caught up in some of the other topics, and it was interesting. And maybe that's something that comes into play. What controls the docks, not just the dock, but what controls there being a shed here with boats all around the place, and how is that considered in this zoning district? It probably isn't. I imagine it's by a special permit. If I heard correctly last night, it's a special permit.
And the municipal overlay district is parts of around the lake as well.
Yeah, let me get some of my controls out of the way and bring up, there are a few other maps. I'm on our town website under the map library, which is under the economic planning development site. Let me see. Zoning overlays, mixed use, precinct. I don't know how, if this is going to share well. So here's supplemental zoning maps. I'll zoom out some. Come on. There we go. So that's a mixed use one. Signage. Municipal building reuse overlay district. So that's not really, that's not part of this. That's pretty far from the lake.
No, it's the last one on the these
Okay.
zoning maps.
What did it? There we go. That's weird. That jumped on me. That was showing, was that the wireless one? Huh. Okay, there we go. Thanks. I was seeing two screens. So here's, and Matt, in your experience, do we need to have something for the municipal property too, to protect it? Like what if the town sold off some of this land?
Well, the select board can do that.
Right.
They'd have to vote at town meeting, but, you know, it's a possibility, but I don't think there's anything we can put in there to prevent that. It just get up at town meeting and vote against it if they ever propose to do that.
Right, and I imagine selling of land, that would require 2/3 vote at a town meeting.
And a lot of outrage too. So, yeah.
It sure would. That would be a big meeting, I would hope. Meeting in attendance. There's this little sliver here. Is that the island?
That's the gas and light department.
So that's the gas and light department. Okay, then the little turn. Okay. Oops, sorry about the jump. A little bit different controls. Oh, and Joanne, to your comment too, Bill Renault, I know this is something he's been working a lot on. He has grants in and a lot of work in progress on and process of retention bins and drainage ditches and capturing all the phosphorus and different things that are leaching back into the lake. I know that's something that they're working on too. I caught a little bit about it in past meetings from a year ago. And so is that the beach?
No. No, I don't think that's the beach over there on the right.
Right there. And this must be the playground. And then the track and the path.
Yeah.
Okay. And that ends the municipal overlay at the top. It picks up again at the cemetery.
Yeah, to me, I think it would be beneficial for us to like outline overall goals first, before getting right into specifics of
Right.
Height or density or anything along those lines, but just the overall goals. And then I love the idea of working with other members of other boards and committees to discuss, what should be what are we looking to do, and provide the goals and determine if they need to be tweaked or edited, but at least have a straw man of the goals that we're looking to accomplish with this task.
Yep. Okay.
It sounds like something that might want to go into more master planning instead of zoning or other issues that we deal with here. Again, if we're going to only deal with height and density, there's only, the limited business district basically is all that we could really focus on.
Yep.
Right.
So, the general residents, even if people put all their parcels together, there's still only so much you can do. So yeah, that's already, in zoning, it's codified. So we just need to figure out where we want to, how we want to approach this, and then see if it's even something that the board alone can do. So.
Erin, when Matt brought up master planning, I thought of you. Do you have any comments?
Oh yeah, I didn't know if you wanted me chiming in or you just wanted the board's members, but yes, that's something. So to talk about a master plan, what you guys are talking about, I think, is bigger picture of the lake. I know we have the certain things that are going on now, but I think the idea of a master plan is really important for the community. And I think what we were just mentioning about kind of protecting the lake, but bigger picture of the lake and the town in general. So that is something I've been looking into for some grant funding because, you know, with the state is rolling out new programs, and one of them is a community planning grant where you can apply to get funding for a master plan. So I definitely think that's something that we all need to be considering, just bigger picture for our community. And this Vision 2030 is the first stepping stone, I think, into the whole master plan process. So I completely agree. I think, you know, I think there's some short-term goals that we can accomplish right now, but I think overall the master plan is a really important route that we need to go.
Thanks, Erin. So just taking this all into things we can control: zoning bylaws, limited business district, height and density by revising current bylaws, or as Megan brought up too, or instituting a overlay district. And Joanne, I know you mentioned this too, that includes a limited business only around the lake.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Matt, in your experience, if somebody was to ask for the limited business district, one parcel to be rezoned for business, I know that's come in front of us before, and that would be, I guess I'm just thinking if it still sits within an overlay of the lake, that whether it was limited business was changed to a business as a use group, that we would still proactively want to think about some of the other zoning districts.
Well, if you're going to put an overlay district, whatever, you know, whatever component of either of those districts which is more restrictive is what would hold.
Right. So the more restrictive. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So just thinking out loud, just clarifying. So in the overlay district, whether it's limited business or if one of those districts are changed to another one that could have a height that above limited business or whatever we have in the overlay, it would be the more restrictive. Okay. And density in the same way. Is there any other things we're not considering, like setback from the lake as one of these?
Yeah, I think that's important. How far back from the lake should things be built, if they're built? I mean, right now there's a lot of marshland and swampland up there.
Yep.
Well, we do have a board that basically focuses on that. So I don't know if we want to get into that territory, to tell you the truth.
Right. And that could be part of that master plan, like Erin was talking about. If we do combine other boards to contribute to that sounds like good direction. So thinking about density meaning like number of units per acre, per set, whatever it might be, but also thinking about density or open space. Maybe open space is another part of it, or like a floor area ratio as part of the density.
Yeah.
So we have height, we have density, and setback. The three things that we can
Height, density, and setback.
control.
Oh, and you said percentage of the land, right? That was built.
Right,
on?
and that would be part of the density,
Yeah.
whether it was number of units or floor area ratio. If it was
Right.
a retail commercial space, how much space. And we already have them in place, but it would be good to look at them closely to see what are they and what type of meaning do they have when it's at the lake versus in downtown.
Right.
All right. Well, it's always fun to have these type of discussions. And Joanne, I appreciate you bringing this up. I'd love to see more topics like this on the planning board agenda. If there's concern for other parts of our town that we can have an impact and open it up to the public and get some feedback from the public, such as the Vision 2030 and other things going on in Vision Wakefield.
Right, so what are the next steps on this item? Are we gonna?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask Joanne. What direction do you want to go in with this now that we've talked? And
Well, I thought your idea to work in collaboration with, I think you mentioned Conservation Commission. I thought that was a good idea. I think in terms of goals that Megan was talking about, I think we identified a number of things that are the goals. I'm not sure we really clarified them. I think we should probably summarize what we think the goals of doing this are.
mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, I think we do want to set some restrictions on the level of development that happens right around the lake. You know, for the reasons that we talked about. And I think a zoning bylaw for an overlay district is something that we should think about and start working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making some notes too.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do a master plan. I think, you know, the master plan is like even bigger than this. I think this is a piece of the master plan that if we do have a focus group addressing this, I think that would be a good idea.
Right. And there's a few of those going on in town right now, as Erin mentioned, and we mentioned. If we could keep it in our, within our board till we narrow down and do the back work on, or the legwork on the limited business and the other zones around the lake, districts around the lake, and we could just document the heat, the density, the height, the density, and the setbacks, just to bring all that information in, and we can have another board discussion and then see what we could do with that information as far as an overlay district, as far as a map. So no, Joanne, if you want to, I mean, I know this was your interest and I don't mind helping you with it. And if anybody else on the board wants to get together outside of the meeting, do the homework and bring it together for our next meeting. We can, I don't know, Matt, in the past when we've had committees like this, subcommittees, it was more for specific projects to go out to review them, to site walk, to gather information and come back to the board. We haven't really had a committee like this on the board since I've been here.
Yeah, so I think the next steps, if you want to do some restriction on height and density and zoning, is to see what's currently allowed right now and what the maximums would be. So, you know, we don't know what is possible right now. So until you find out what's possible, it'd be hard to restrict it. So, the next step would be to do a zoning analysis of the districts and what is a potential for someone to do. So, which, you know, is going to be a little bit of work to do that.
Right.
So.
And Joanne, I'd love to work on that with you to quickly get the information off the site and pull it into a spreadsheet and then get a map and start sketching on the map to see where those places are.
Okay.
I actually like doing stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
I had a question for Erin in regards to the timeline. Is there like a timeline for the grant application for the master plan for the town that you mentioned? Is there a specific timeline in regards to when you might hear back from the application and how that might coincide right with stuff that we're working on?
So I'm sorry. The application is due in June, and then you won't hear back for like another 6 to 8 weeks at least, usually. And then the whole master plan process, I know we haven't done something since I believe 2003, can take up to 18 months. So when you look at that, that's definitely more long term. I think what we're trying to address now is any new development that might come through, through in the near future. So
Yeah, no, I just didn't know if like the application was due, tomorrow or
Oh, no,
6
no.
months from now
I have
or
time. Yeah, I have time.
Okay.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Erin. So Joanne, do you want to do that? We could get together
Yeah, sure.
separate from the board and we can look at that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can email and figure that out. So, and then Joanne and I will put it on the agenda for the next meeting and we'll share our zoning analysis.
Okay.
We can discuss some more. What we'll do too is we'll send it out before the meeting. That way you can get a chance to take a look at it to see if you have any comments on that. And then I imagine in a meeting like that too, that's where we can start to have some public discussion and get some feedback from the public as well.
Yep.
Yep. Excellent. Well, thanks again, Joanne.
Thank you.
Want our board to do more of this, and I am really excited for the future and working with other boards in town to solve some of our master plan issues.
That's why they call us the planning board, right?
You say that, and I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but I joined the planning board for that, but found that a lot of A&Rs, a lot of subdivisions and things that we don't really have control of. So this is something that we could take some control of and really find a better way to approach it and clean up some of the zoning bylaws that give us headaches. Dan, I know you have your hand up. I see that. We don't really want to bring in any public discussion on this yet, but if you do have a comment that could help us, please share.
Certainly, without I'm going to completely refrain from opinions on what you're doing, other than to applaud the way that you're doing it. I think that's fantastic. As far as process, there is another bylaw review, which it does include the zoning bylaws, by the way.
Yep.
It does happen by charter every 5 years, and so it will be called next year, and that may be an opportunity for the planning board to get more deeply involved. At the last time the bylaw review committee met, we reviewed everything and made the explicit decision to exclude Chapter 190 from deep review. And it was recommended that that be reviewed at the next time that it was reviewed, which would be next year. I did send a note off to the town council to remind them of that as they were planning their budget, because the recommendation by Town Council Mullen, not to be confused with the rest of the town council,
Yes.
but Town Council Mullen was to have a separate set of attorneys to consider recodifying the zoning bylaws. And something like that, my personal recommendation would be anything that you go along those routes would definitely want to work with the other boards, but anything for zoning should be led by the planning board. So from a process perspective, that's one opportunity, one venue that you have where you could actually look at these things in light of things, and then, what a master plan might be targeted for a further recodification or evaluation of that in 2027. So some of these things take time, some of these things take forever. So with that, I'll let you just go forward, but otherwise the process that you're doing it, I think is fine.
Thanks, Dan. And I was going to send off an email to you after this because of your involvement with the bylaw review, which I remember you were in front of our board, well, I guess it was 4 years ago. So thank you. Thanks for that. All right, so let me close a couple of views.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one suggestion?
Brian, yes, please.
Real quick, I would just suggest that the board, as you endeavor into this, to involve the property owners.
Yep.
That's critical, because otherwise the wrong message gets sent to them. When zoning, when they hear zoning changes, what they think is freeze the zoning, develop now.
Right.
And you don't want this to result in, kind of scaring them into, not that they should, not that you're trying to do that, but just kind of the unintended consequence that,
Right.
Oh, geez, something's going to happen here. So I better, freeze my zoning right away, which they can do very easily, as you know, and then
Right,
develop now because things are going to change. So I would suggest, as you probably would anyways, to embrace them and bring them into the process, and include them. And then also, through them to maybe work with them, because maybe some of them will be willing to give some waterfront access to the lake.
it's exactly what I was thinking. And I see Aaron nodding as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, so,
Yep.
some of these folks that I know well are good people.
Yep.
And, I think, because when they hear stuff like, hey, we can, the things we want to do is reduce height, reduce density, that scares them. But if they're brought into the process and they can participate in that and learn through the consultants that, gee, maybe this is a better use for their property, maybe it's more valuable if they do it this way, et cetera, to bring them in early in the process. That's all.
Yep, all good points. Thank you. And Theo, I see your hand up too, if you want to, quick comment.
Sure, but I'm happy to wait.
Name and address. Yep.
Yeah. Hi,
That's
Theo
okay,
Knoll,
fine.
8 Fernwood Road. I'm happy to wait till item 6 if you want to only take.
Items not anticipated by the.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy
Right.
to speak to that.
Thanks. Well, in that case, actually, Erin, do you want to recap the ULI? This is under items not anticipated by the chair.
Yeah, I'd love to. So good evening, everyone. I didn't really say hi. So last week, we had an exciting project that was starting right before COVID hit back last February with the Urban Land Institute to study a part of downtown, the South Main Street area, to find ways to make a better use of some properties down there that have been sitting vacant for a number of years. So the Urban Land Institute, they have a technical assistance program, and so municipalities can apply for this program, and they bring in real estate brokers, finance, architects, a variety of people that have kind of a real estate background to give you outsiders ideas of what you could do for this, these parcels of land or this part of your town, downtown. So we were really concentrating on the South Main Street, a big concentrating on the Molly's building and the vacancy that's been there for a number of years, but also studying the properties around there just to make the gateway into our city a better use, I guess. I'm just making sure I'm saying everything the right way. And so they came in, we did a site tour with a number of us over at Town Hall. We had the town engineer there, the building inspector, our assessor, went with the group from ULI, walked around the area. They gave us some great ideas while we were doing that. And then on Monday, that was on a Friday, last Monday, they met with about 10 or so stakeholders in that area, but in the community in general, to learn about the area a little bit more and just the Wakefield in general when it comes to kind of real estate and our, other parts of the area that could use some improvement. So after kind of connecting with the town, doing a site tour and talking to our stakeholders, they had charrettes. The group from ULI had charrettes and put together a report for us with short, medium, and long-term goals to improve that area. Everything from short-term included placemaking, public art, how do we make the area a little more engaging, and then long-term kind of drawing mock-ups of what the area could be, mixed-use properties, still including placemaking, food trucks. But I think overall the report they gave us, which that was a quick findings and recommendations report, they're giving us a longer one that we'll get in like 12 weeks or so, can give us ideas for the whole community on things that we could be doing to kind of make it a more engaging community. So it was exciting, and we had a good turnout. I think we had 50 or so people at the presentation on Tuesday night, representing a wide range of groups and residents. So it was an exciting planning process. Last week was really busy, so it was good. And I'll pass it back to you, Bill, for other planning that we had last week.
Thank you. And if you want, I don't know if you, it's all up on the website, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll put it in the chat, but I know the chat is
Yep.
disabled.
The
So
chat's disabled, so you can go to the town website
Mhm.
and
if you
yeah,
type
if you
in
actually just search Wakefield ULI, it comes up.
Mhm.
Yep.
So the reports, the recording of the presentation is there, and a few other information. But once the report is done, I'll make sure that's posted as well.
Thanks. It was a cold Friday morning, but it was definitely worth it being there.
Mm-hmm.
That was excellent. Thanks for setting that up and bringing that together. Next, items not anticipated. Jonathan Chines, I see you there. If you'd like to do a quick recap of the Vision 2030. I see you there. Are you there?
I am. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I know you said you would be late to the meeting, but I appreciate your attendance.
No problem. Yeah, just to briefly give a recap of the Vision 2030 work. As a reminder for folks, this is our effort to develop a community vision and value statement, really so that we have kind of an articulation of the shared goals and priorities of the town, so that we can use that to inform efforts like refining the master plan, making budget trade-offs, every year as we do in the town council, setting different policy objectives and things like that. So we, from a process standpoint, have a plan to have 3 virtual public forums, each focused on 4 different topics, and then to have a survey that's available online for 3 weeks after each of those forums. So we had the first of those forums last Thursday. It was focused on 4 areas: growth and preservation, housing, transit, and parks and recreation. And I have to say the participation in it was incredible. I don't know how many unique people we had on, just because I did see a lot of people kind of jump on and jump off as their time allowed. But we pretty consistently had, I would say, somewhere between 80 and 100 people on at any time. And so the feedback was really outstanding. What we did was we broke into 6 different breakout groups to ask some focused questions in each of those 4 areas, and use that to gather some feedback, and really got some great suggestions, some really good insights, and again, a lot of enthusiasm. So that process, again, that was the first of 3 public forums. We do have a survey that's available right now online that'll be open for about another 2.5 weeks, covering those same topics that we addressed during the forum. We'll have a second forum in April on 4 new topics, followed again by a survey that'll be available online, and then a third forum in June with 4 final topics. So our hope is to wrap up at least the sort of the data gathering part of it, the feedback gathering from the public, by June. And then there'll be some time that we take to try to package all of that into something coherent that we would then bring in front of the town council and other boards. I do want to recognize Erin for all of her great work in helping to kind of facilitate this and work with Metropolitan Area Planning Council to put this all together. Erin and Jen McDonald did a ton of work to make all this happen. So thank you, Erin, for that. And Bill, thank you to you too for helping out and being one of our facilitators.
Oh, you're welcome. That was fun. It was cool having Steve Mayo take the notes for us. And your point about a cross of different, we had a high school from Greenwood, a high school student from Greenwood. We had a couple of really interesting people in there that had very cool jobs. One gentleman runs the Bike to the Sea, volunteers to do that. And we also had town council chair Ann Santos was also in our group. So it was a really cool group. Theo, who was on this meeting too, he was also in our group. So there was a really good range of information and all. So yeah. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, MAPC, and thank you, Jonathan, for the recap.
Yeah, no, I just, if I could leave with kind of or close with an ask. Anyone who's in the meeting or watching, please fill out the survey. Even if you did attend, I think having that sort of written feedback is helpful. And please join us for the next 2. We do need to finalize the dates for them, which we haven't done yet. But once those are scheduled, we'll get the information out there and hope we can have another great crowd.
Yep, thanks. And share the survey with other town folk.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, we definitely want as many responses as we can.
Excellent. Thank you.
I make a suggestion on the nights to alternate nights. Don't have them on the same night because other people have other commitments and can't make them. So.
Absolutely. No, I think, scheduling is always a challenge, but I think the intent is to try to move them around a little bit.
I made note of that. So our next meeting, like we said, we don't have a date yet, but I wrote that down.
Yeah, Matt, now we're going to have one on Sunday at 2 p.m. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no St. Patrick's Day meeting, right?
I don't think so. That's good.
No St. Patrick's Day. You're good until at least Patriots Day, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks, Matt, and thanks again, Jonathan. Excellent. Another item not anticipated for our agenda. Last night, the town council meeting went pretty long. It was a lot of good topics, but the very last one was the one I was most interested in, where town council Paul Donaco presented a lot of different options for the Butler Ave. And I know Megan and Joanne, you weren't part of our board when this was all going through, but Matt and I, it was like maybe a year, 18 months that we worked on this one up on Butler Ave. And there's a lot of property in the subdivision that went in through. And if you don't know the story, it would be great if you caught up to the town council meeting, maybe start around 10 o'clock or 10:15 might be a good time to start. So the very last item, I believe last night, was about Butler Ave. And there was a couple different options. There's nothing being set yet, but right now that land is owned by the town and the town is looking for something to do with it. So it's going to be on the topic for future town council meetings. So if you look for that on the agenda, it's definitely worth a listen. Matt, I don't know if there's anything you want to follow up with that, because I know with working with Paul Donaco to understand it.
Yeah, no, I've got.
Okay, that's just wanted to see. Okay, any board members have any items not anticipated?
Yeah, I do. One of the ZBA reviews that we had, and I know we got this a while ago. It is due tomorrow, responses, but it's for 97 to 99 Water Street.
Yes.
I don't know if people have really looked this over, but one of the issues out there is that part of the sidewalk that would appear, if you're out there, to be the public sidewalk is on a portion of this property that they want to redevelop. And apparently they want to reclaim their land and move the sidewalk back out into the street. So what that is going to do is to make and I'm sure a lot of people have pulled out of Wakefield Ave at Water Street, and it's not an easy intersection to get out of. It's not a 90-degree corner there. It's at an odd angle.
Yeah,
so
it is.
By them basically reclaiming this land and putting a building up there, it's going to make that situation even worse. Plus, they're getting rid of some parking in there, and they're putting in underground parking. So my suggestion from the board would be is that the ZBA push the issue that the town has obtained that through eminent domain and not grant them their request to basically put a building on portion of the land the public's been using and relocate the curb further out in the street.
Just a question, do you think by relocating the curb, it will make that intersection exchange more dangerous or allow it to flow better? Do you see this as a safety?
Yes, you're making the intersection at Wakefield Ave and Water Street smaller. So on the other side of this is where the gas and light department transformers are. They usually park their trucks right along there. So it's going to get to be a pretty dangerous intersection there. As it is, as you pull out, you have to pull basically into the roadway to see down Water Street because of parking and the angle of the building. So I think this would be something that, would be good to point out to the ZBA in case they haven't done this yet.
Right, so there's the Bolodrome. We're across from the Bolodrome. Is this 197,
Yep.
98, 99?
It's just that corner, that corner lot there.
Yeah, and
So,
it's a acute angle, isn't it?
yeah,
It's not straight on, that's right.
it'd be nice to pull up the plans, but of course they're not PDFs, they're hard copies, so.
They're not, I know.
It's just that one building there that's on the corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going down the street because it does go back pretty far.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're basically proposing to take that entire lot and put a building on it.
So, Matt, is the sidewalk on Wakefield or on Water that it's on the Wakefield sidewalk?
Yep, right there.
Okay. And their property line, if that's the right term, goes out to the edge here. And they want to take that.
That's what it looks like. And now that I'm looking at it in the plan is incorrect. They're showing an existing curb line there, and there's apparently no curb line there. So even the plan isn't very accurate, the existing conditions plan. So
Right.
I wish I had scanned this, but that would be something that I'd want to point out.
And I mean, I could draft a letter for this and share it with you and get it out to the ZBA before their meeting tomorrow, if you'd like.
Sure.
Right.
They're also doing, under building infiltration, it looks like. It's this is a difficult site they're trying to develop here. So
So we want to point out as a board that our concern regarding the sidewalk.
well, that'd be, if it's a concern of mine, I don't know if it's a concern of the boards. Let's put it that way. So I don't want you to put, I want you to imply that the entire board's on.
No, I'm just trying to make some sense out of it right now. I want to figure out what, as a board, we can discuss to either move forward with or not. I want to narrow it down to, are we writing in this letter, if shared by the board members, to send to the ZBA tomorrow, maybe before 3, to voice our concern for the existing pedestrian walkway along Wakefield Ave at the property that they'll know from the plans, from the proposed plans. Are they approved plans or proposed?
No, this is going before the ZBA right now.
Okay, so they
it's gonna
haven't been
go-
approved yet. Okay.
No, if it was approved, we'd be a little bit late to the game here.
I didn't know if they had some type of okay, fair enough. So if this is the proposed plan showing the building, the proposed building extending over the current pedestrian walkway.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to, again, I wish I could pull the plan up. I could explain a little bit more, but
Right, so
if you guys have a copy of the paper plan, you can see on the first
do, but
sheet, the
it's
existing
downstairs.
conditions. That,
yeah, this packet.
Should we run and go get the plan? Oh, thank you, Erin.
What's that?
She's holding up the plan.
Oh, let me take a look at that because I don't have her shown the screen. All right. What you could do is you can pin her view.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Right, and that's the building, and they're proposing that new curb that swings out.
So this is the existing condition
Okay.
right now.
Yep.
So if you see that, you see the curb line, which actually doesn't really exist in real life.
Yep.
That double line that's further out, and then that middle line that sort of bisects, that's the right-of-way line for the street and the property. And you can see that part of that is being used as a, public way at this point.
Right.
So, Aaron, if you could hold up the second plan.
Okay. Anna White over here.
Thank you so much. This is high tech and low tech mixed together. Okay.
Aaron, you need to speak in order to pull yourself highlighted.
Oh, okay. Can you see me?
I pinned her. You can go in the little ... next to her name, and you can pin her to be the big view.
This one might be a little harder to see given the color's different, but this is the proposed site plan.
Right.
So basically what they're doing is they're moving the curb line. They're putting the building right along basically it's a foot off the property line.
Right.
And then I assume they're going to move the curb about 6 feet off of that into the street. So they're going to realign that and make that the angle from Wakefield Avenue to Water Street more obtuse.
Obtuse. Is that the word I was looking for before? Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you so much. Okay. So now that Matt's explained this, Megan and Joanne, how do you feel about the board drafting a letter to the ZBA, which we've done before, to let them know how we feel about this?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm happy to virtually sign my name to that letter.
Okay. Perfect. So Matt and I will work to draft the letter, and we'll send it out to everybody tomorrow, and you can respond just directly back to me, and we'll get that out to the chair of the ZBA, Mr. Hatfield, before their meeting tomorrow. And just to let you know too, the last letter that we drafted and sent to the ZBA, it did have an impact. It did change the decision in that meeting. So it does work. Not always, but I think this is a good one to bring up. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I would just point out that the planning board has concerns that relocation of the curb line on Wakefield Avenue will adversely impact the traffic flow and pedestrian safety on this project.
Yep.
Are they not required to have any setback from the road? Because it looks, I mean, I know the existing building is right there on the sidewalk, but does that mean that future buildings need to be on that same?
I believe that's why they're in front of the ZBA, to get approval for this. If it was building it right back in place, same built, whatever it might be, they probably wouldn't have to go in front of the ZBA unless it was a non-conforming lot and needed a special permit. There's so many different variables at play.
Well, for the setbacks, for the front yard, side yard and rear yard, there are no setbacks. It's a business district.
Mm-hmm.
So they can do that by right. So.
Right, and where to Matt's point, that's what spawned this whole thing, I believe, is because their property line is actually the current sidewalk, or let's just not call it a sidewalk because it's not there, but a pedestrian walkway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I have what I need to draft something up, Matt, and I'll send that to you.
All right.
You can get it out to everybody. Thanks. Any other board members? I know Theo had his hand up. I told him we would get there. Joanne or Megan, do you have any items not anticipated?
Nope.
Thanks. Theo, thank you for being patient.
Oh, thank you. And I don't want to add much to the agenda of the planning board. I really wanted to, so 8 Fernwood Road, and I wanted to commend the planning board and Aaron and Councilor Chines for all of the planning that is happening. And it's really exciting to see all of the visioning and starting to thread a lot of these things together. So that, to me, I think is I think one of the great strengths of Wakefield, our civic engagement, and the role of the planning board. So I'm also, I would have to say, excited to hear starting to think about zoning, because that and thinking about the overlays and what they mean and what those opportunities are. I would add, certainly, like, it's also good to use visuals, but I think it does feed well into the long-term visioning process, because you get to imagine what is and what can be, and a lot of what you talk about with ULI or with Vision 2030, or even with Envision Wakefield, is about our gateways and how you come into Wakefield and how you use it. And one other reason to I think be opposing what's happening on 97 Water Street, you're creating a larger barrier, and even you're adding more to the heat island effect that happens at that corner and on that street. And it's already been observed that there aren't a lot of street trees that go down that main street. So that's, you know, an incremental loss that that building would have, you know, expanding that building would have as well.
Thanks, Theo.
So, thank you.
And it is, I agree. It's so visible now, and thank you, Aaron and town council and everything that's going on to get the message out. I think Jen McDonald's doing a wonderful job too with all the, it's really coming together. I feel we do have a lot to look forward to with participation and vision. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right.
I'm sorry, can I give one more shout out to the Vision 2030? The MAPC had a lot of great data that I think really gives very useful context. If you think
That's
about
true.
how planning is, how our land use and our demographics and where we're going.
That was pretty cool to see all that information. Just the visitors, whatever it might be, it was just awesome to see all that.
And I think the housing component
Yeah.
too was very educational for folks too on why certain things are happening as well.
Yep.
So yeah, and that should be on our website as well if you want to check that out.
Yeah, that's all up on the Vision 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. And that's another thing to, yeah, add that to your list. Excellent. Thanks. Well, that's a good positive note. I really like the way the meeting went tonight, and I appreciate everybody's time and effort. With that, anybody help with a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
I just wanted to point out one more
Oh,
thing.
sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, so we get these ZBA filings. I encourage the board members to go through and take a look at these, because you know, when you look at what's going on Foundry Street, what's proposed down there, what's already going on, and you look at the density down there and what it's going to be like, it's that entire neighborhood's being transformed. So we just, you know, we're talking about planning. You get a sense of basically what the ZBA is up against with all these projects that's coming before them, and sometimes how they can't react to all this because they have so much coming at them right now.
Right.
So I just encourage board members to look at this stuff and see if you see something that doesn't look right, bring it up. We can discuss it, and then, you know, we can help advise the ZBA, because sometimes they're looking at different items that perhaps we look at a little bit more for different aspects. So that's just, I wanted to point that out.
Thanks, man. I did notice in the Foundry one that was in our packet, not this last packet, but the one before, it looks like it is a mixed use, meaning it is going to have retail or some type of restaurant on the first floor with resident above, which is what I wish the development that's in there now did have. So I was glad to see that. And if I didn't see that, that's what I would have brought up as why isn't it in there since it's in the overlay district?
Yeah, but you can also see like this Water Street one, you know, the commercial portion is minuscule. It's almost thrown in there as an afterthought.
Wasn't it half of the first floor, if I remember right?
Well,
It was commercial?
not even half the first, but
Wasn't
half the ground, more than half the ground level is parking.
for the parking coming out, yeah.
So you can see what, you know, we've got the floor plans, you can see what that space is good for, which is not a lot. So, and same with this Foundry Street. Yeah, they've got, we call it mixed use, but you can ask yourself, if you're going to put a restaurant there, where are the people going to park? They're going to the restaurant.
Right.
So, you know, you got to look at the big picture here. What, you know, yes, it might be a restaurant there, it might be a store for the people that live around there, so they don't have to walk across the tracks, but or up to 7-Eleven, you know, the block. But besides that, how's it going to add to the character of Wakefield?
Right.
It's,
So,
yeah.
Right. Good points, Matt. Sorry, Joanne, did you have a comment?
No, I would agree with them. I am concerned about how it's going to impact the character of Wakefield and character of Foundry Street. I mean, going to Avon Supply, you know, it's going to be a little more difficult, I think. But
Right.
and you know, the services, like just getting the police over there and the fire department, it's a whole huge development, that area. Big difference, big change.
well, the big thing for me about down there, there's a lot of small businesses down there, you know.
Yeah.
They have to relocate. Yes, there's electrical plumbing places, but they need to park their trucks somewhere. They need to have a shop, it needs to be a wood shop someplace. All these places are disappearing. And I don't know where they're going, but they're definitely not going to be in Wakefield. It's going to be all residential. So that's, you know, that's concerning for everyone if you want to call a plumber in at some point and they've got to come from New Hampshire to get down here. So
That's an interesting point, Matt. During the ULI presentation, it came up once or twice about a land swap, meaning if there is land or buildings that are available, think Salem Street, across from the sand and gravel or in that area, that there is a possibility of some type of land swap where properties, and it's something the town council can get into. I know, Aaron, that came up a few times, and I don't quite understand legally how that all works, but it sounded like something that actually happens a lot, where if there's an industrial type business that's now more getting closed in by residential, they do a land swap, and it's economically thinking it's good for both parties to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going to more like uses, and hopefully that's something with my position that I can reach out to these companies and businesses a little more to see what we can do to assist finding them new space so we can try to keep them in town.
Right.
But I understand. I just think the one thing I'll mention about those developments, and I've heard a lot about all the projects going on over there, is just thinking, I think these have been in the pipeline for a while, but the whole transit-oriented development and how it's located near the train, with the thought that I think this is pre-COVID, but you know, eventually people will be going back into the city and hopefully won't be using their car. They'll be walking to the train station. And so I just wanted to put that out there as well as, you know, I think there could be a lot worse places that those sort of developments could be going that could have greatly affect the town. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, Erin, since you put that out there, I'm curious if you've heard any talk about reevaluating transit-oriented development when the transit part of it is diminishing. We currently don't have weekend rail service.
Mm-hmm.
Bus service is being consolidated and is severely cut back. So at some point, claiming transit-oriented development is not going to be accurate.
Oh no, and I had a nice meeting with MAPC this morning with a bunch of the other economic development and planning directors in the surrounding communities, talking to MAPC in regards to how do we look forward, because people's the way they commute is definitely going to change, right? Even in the near future, when people do go back to Boston, I think more people will be comfortable taking their car from the get-go. But I think we need to try to figure out a way to incentivize people to use public transit or feel comfortable taking again. And what that looks like, I can't give you an answer tonight, but you know, that conversation is definitely going on, and it's not something that's been forgotten, and we know that's a reality. But like I said, a lot of these projects, you know, have been in the pipeline before COVID. But I agree. I think we're going to have to start thinking a little differently in the near and medium future. So
I think Kate Lipper Garabedian, I think if that's how you say her name correctly, our state rep from Melrose, I believe, I follow her on Twitter. I think there's an event either tomorrow night that she's having like an open forum with the people of Melrose and surrounding towns and cities to talk about exactly that, Matt, like what's going on with the transit and the schedules and all that. I'll see if I can dig that, but if you look at Kate's website or at follow her on Twitter, she has something I remember scrolling through.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I wouldn't be adverse to having some of these developments pay in to have a subsidized collector bus that, you know, shuttles people back and forth to Oak Grove or something and makes up the slack, because a lot of these are being billed as transit oriented, and if there's no transit on the weekends, then and you purchase that thinking that you're going to be able to get back and forth, and suddenly you can't.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that would be a little deceptive of what I was told and what happened. Not that it's their fault, but they can also pick up the slack and correct some of the situation.
Yeah, Jonathan, you have your hands up. Sorry, Jonathan.
I did. I just wanted to say, Matt, in response to your question and observation, I think it's absolutely right. And I think it's also one of the reasons why we need to continue advocating with the state for the MBTA's service cuts to be reversed. You know, we're not alone among communities in the MBTA service area that has kind of invested in transit-oriented development. I mean, this is a pretty common practice in pretty much every community that's served by the T. And, you know, you're absolutely right that the cuts that have been made, you know, really do turn that strategy on its head in a way that has, you know, potentially really harmful implications to communities like ours that have used this as kind of a guidepost for development in the last decade. And so one of the things I know Representative Lipper Garabedian and Senator Lewis are focused on, and one of the things I think at a town level that we're trying to continue to put pressure on is making sure that we advocate for restoration of transit services, so that sort of the promise of these developments, you know, both to the people that moved in and bought into them, as well as to the communities that have allowed them to go forward, so that the promise of these developments actually pans out in the future.
Thanks, Jonathan. Sorry, go ahead, Erin.
No, I was just going to say those are very good points.
Yeah, and go ahead, Joanne.
I was just going to say that in our vision group discussion, there was a request to have better transit options going from Wakefield to Malden or Oak Grove, because a lot of people need to go there and there's no parking there. There's not enough parking there. So even though the bus does go there.
Right.
And I also read that MAPC saying it's really a big unknown how much people are going to go back to using the public transit. And if they don't even have that option because of the service cuts, that may drive it too.
Right. These are things somewhat out of our control, but I think as a community, as Jonathan mentioned and Matt and I mentioned, and our state reps and senators, that's the route. If you want to make some noise. Jonathan Burke, I also follow him around because he's been posting some amazing ideas for reurbanization, meaning how do you bring a neighborhood back and how do you change the speed limit to, I think it was called a super block, and they're doing it in Barcelona's trying it, a few other bigger cities. And obviously this is something for Boston. If you think of could in the South End, Columbus, Tremont, Dartmouth, those become the main streets that people travel on, but all the other side streets, one way in each direction, would be 5 miles an hour for cars, which would change everything going on in that area. It wouldn't become a cut through anymore. It wouldn't be, it's only resident only, and it changes the whole dynamic of the streetscape. And there's a lot of data saying why, and you get to know your neighbors more, and there's more opportunity for outdoor stuff. So I could see that happen in certain areas. There's also an opportunity to scale that to some of our neighborhoods. So it will be interesting to see combined with a possible community bus, a trolley right down the middle of Main Street. Maybe that's what comes back. But there are so many options that if we look outside of Wakefield and outside of Boston to some cities that are also going through this in towns, there are a lot of creative ideas that are popping up in neighborhoods. So it's out there. You just got to spend some time searching for it. If you want to steal some ideas and make them our own, that's the way to do it.
One thing I also want to point out that commuting on these, this is not a one-way commute of just leaving town. When I was working in towards Boston, I would often take the bus early in the morning, and the buses coming into Wakefield often had more people on them than the ones going in the early morning. So those are workers coming in town.
Yep. That was one of the stats too. Sorry, Matt. That was one of the stats that came up on the MAPC for Vision 2030 of the percentage of workers that are from Wakefield that work in Wakefield versus outside.
Yeah. So those are people coming in to serve us and to work here that now can't get here. So
yeah,
that's just something to point out.
Attorney McGrail, or Brian, I think you had your hand up. Was that something you wanted to add?
Yeah, if I could just quickly, I'd just like to comment on Councilor Chines. I thought he had some very good points on the public transportation. And, interestingly, with the transit-oriented development, the recently enacted housing choice statute that Erin is shaking her head, she's very familiar with. Not only now is the state, is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts encouraging transit-oriented development, they're mandating it in cities and towns and that have transit
MBTA
stations.
communities.
Yeah, the MBTA stations. So that's really it. Before it was like, gee, we just want to encourage this. Now they actually mandate and require the districts. And I think what's going to happen as far as service goes to our community, the better our transit-oriented development is, the better case we have to continue service in our town versus other communities that don't have it. Reading is doing the same thing. They have a lot of developments right in the transit because they know I've worked over there that they want to keep that service in their town. They don't want the train to just go by. They want to be able to say to the state that we have followed your mandate. We've developed transit-oriented development. You now need to make the commitment back to us. It makes it much easier to go back to our legislators and say, hey, We did what we were encouraged and or mandated to do. Now you need to do your part. And it gives our legislators a better story to tell at the state level. That's all. But I do want to comment that I thought Councilor Chines was right on point. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And I know we could probably keep doing this for a long time.
It's interesting. It's really
interesting discussion, and we could keep going around and around. I know, Theo, you have your hand up again. If you want to add one more comment, that would be great.
Yeah, I think the housing choice legislation also gives towns, I think, a lot of leverage. It is about, I think, being proactive with our zoning to think about where development goes and how we use it. So it's not going to, it gives us another tool that we can use as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was an article in Thursday's item about the state mandate. So I thought it was a pretty good article explaining it.
You'll have to look it up. I know I've read some of it when the bill was proposed and the information that was going back and forth and a lot of the comments. And when I first read through it, I thought it was really going to, okay, it's thinking about Somerville. They're thinking about the sprawl going out more towards cities like that, into Malden, into Medford. But I'll take another look at it too, just to see how it could help us here.
Yeah, I believe they're having a webinar. I was supposed to get some information about explaining it a little more. So if I have that, I'll make sure I share.
Oh, thanks. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent a lot of time looking at it, Mr. Chair. It's really interesting. I mean, one of the things that it makes it a by right use, which is kind of scary to any community, because basically now you know, like a lot of times with projects, your board looks at the designs, the architecture, the conditions, the linkage for impact, and the housing choice. It just makes it they make it by right projects, right, Eric? It's just it's automatically like building permit. So, you know, that's why I think this town being proactive is ahead of the game, because we've already implemented our zone and we have a special permit process that we have to go through.
Right. Thanks. Excellent. Just great discussion. And I know it's getting a little late, but this is good. I hope we continue these type of discussions in our meetings. Well, thanks, everybody. And unless there's any other comments on any other topics, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. Yeah, that was a great conversation. So thanks, everyone. But I move to adjourn the Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 Planning Board meeting.
Thanks. Anybody second that?
I guess I'll have to. I thought I've spoken enough tonight, but I'll second it.
Thanks, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Roll call. Sorry. Joanne, are you in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Yes.
Megan, are you in favor of adjourning the meeting? Thanks.
Yes.
Matt, you in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Abstain.
Okay. All right. All right. I abstain too. Then now we don't have, no, just kidding. I am in favor of adjourning. Thank you so much.